Awesome. Cool. Well, my name is Matt, and I want to talk to you guys today just a little bit about why it's kind of like a secret weapon if you can build an audience as a developer. Because as developers, we love to talk about what we can build, right? And the code we can ship and the things we can learn and the frameworks that are hot. But another piece is like, okay, what do you want to do with it? Do you want to build this next side project that's really going to make someone else's lives better? Is it going to be your full-time thing where you're working for a company you've always dreamed of, doing exactly what you love, or maybe even like going out on your own using the skills that you've kind of built up over time? But you can't do that if you don't know the right people, if you don't have people to buy your stuff or people who know how awesome you are so they can hire you. So, is it doing it again? Oh, okay. Give it one more shot. Okay, let me know if it acts up again, and we'll keep on rolling. So this is something that I've done myself to get the job I'm at right now, and so I haven't figured this all out, but I'm gonna share from some of my role models and people I've seen online who do this way better than I do, and hopefully we can glean a few lessons so that you guys can start building an audience yourself. So like I was saying, the reason why you want to do this is at some point, hopefully, you're going to want to use the skills that you're learning in code to get a job that's better than the one you have now. Even if you love your job, if you're constantly growing and learning and trying new stuff, and you guys are all here tuning into the stream or in this room learning from great stuff like what Tony's showing you and what Andre's going to show you and all the people who are giving you all these ideas, hopefully you're going to use that and you're going to keep growing, and so you're going to want to keep on moving on to bigger and better things and making your team better and doing kind of stuff that you're proud of. And so that's kind of the goal here. You don't need to reach a ton of people. I think when people hear that you're going to build an audience, right, they think, well, I must need to go reach 100,000 people or 10 million people. But that's not really true. Actually, the way I got my job at Tailwind right now, which I love, is I was speaking to a small group at Techlahoma doing a lightning talk, just like this one. I was scared spitless. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was like, I know a little bit about like how to market your side project if you develop something, so let me give that. And that opened the door to just like one person who happened to work at Tailwind, and they introduced me to other people, and that started a hiring conversation, and eventually led to me working there. So you don't need to reach a ton of people with the things I'm going to show you. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to start like sharing what you've learned and reaching just a handful of the right people. And so here, if you take anything away from how to build an audience that gets you hired, that helps you launch your dream job, whatever that is, the number one key I want you to hear from this is that you have to give away more value than you create. And that sounds pretty simple because it is. It's really not rocket science. What you want to be able to do is to give value away for free, and that attracts people in. So you can kind of think of it like a savings account, right? We all know that if you save in, $100 month after month, that's going to multiply over time and kind of produce this nice return so that you can buy a house or buy a car or be secure in your retirement or whatever. Building an audience is really kind of the same way. You're paying in a little bit with these free things you give away, and that builds up goodwill. That earns the right for people to pay attention to what you're doing. And then that allows you to have an ask that is kind of equal to balance out what you've done. So if you give a little bit of value away and you're really stingy and then you ask for a big thing, give me this big job that I haven't proved myself in, buy my thing, and it's a lot of money, that probably doesn't line up. But I think you'll find that people who are really generous at what they give away can ask for a whole lot, even maybe more than you'd think at first. And that's okay because they've been so generous and they've built up that goodwill, and it's multiply over time. They can kind of withdraw it just like you would a bank account. So what are kind of some opportunities that, specifically for developers, that you can use to build an audience? Because maybe you'll see some things that work for marketers or, kind of these scummy, like, YouTube people that are kind of selling snake oil. Like, we don't want to do that. We want to give away authentic value that we feel good about and our audience feels good about, and kind of aligns with our developer audience, since that's what we want to build an audience in. And I think one of the first ways that anyone can use is just to build useful software. It's probably what you're doing already, but how could you use that to kind of get the attention of people who think like you and get excited about the same types of things? One big one is through open source packages. If you don't kind of know much about open source, it's basically I was just talking to Jackson actually, and he was telling me about, hey, I'm working on building in some authentication into my Angular app, and I'm going to reuse it across my other projects. That way I don't have to code the same thing over and over. Well, that's exactly the same thing thing in open source packages. It's just, hey, we've already kind of solved this problem, authentication, or maybe one right here that I use is called Laravel Analytics. It just makes it really easy to work with Google Analytics because their API is kind of messy and gross under the hood. But how can I make that really easy so that other people don't have to solve this problem? It's kind of already been solved. If you can give that away for free and other people find it valuable, it's a great way to get in front of people and earn their attention over time. Another one is just maybe templates. Maybe you made a marketing page for your new side project you're really proud of, or a way to compile your documentation. And if you can give that away from people, because why not? That's another great way to bring people in. It's a free thing that you can build and then give away. Another one that may or may not be code is something like a side project that's really relevant. So there was a maker who went in and started this thing called Nomad List, which is just, it started out as just a Google sheet of the best remote places to work. What countries, what places can you go to and get good internet, and you can work on your stuff if you don't have to work in a physical office where everyone's together. And that grew over time and became this huge thing that blew up and got tons of attention because it was really valuable to people who were remote and were developers or doing different types of work. And so think of what you can build and how you can give it away for free in order to bring people in and earn the right for that big ask. Another one is just sharing what you know, and I'll give a few really practical examples of this because this can look like a lot of different things. But wherever you're at in your coding journey, you know something. You know, if it's like, well, I only know some HTML and CSS, I just started a month ago, it's like, great. Someone who is a weekend can learn from the 3 weeks of the stuff you've been hacking away on and experimenting with. So no matter how little you know, like I promise you, you had to learn that. Someone else is coming behind you who's going to have to learn it too. So I've kind of broken this up into kind of what's your appetite, because you could spend a lot of time on this or a little time. So I've broken it up into kind of bite-sized samples that are kind of like quick tips and little authentic moments, tasty side dishes that are maybe things like a podcast or a blog post or something in the middle. It's not going to fill you up all the way, but it's more than just a quick bite. Or maybe a full course meal. Maybe you want to write like the definitive guide to Docker and show you everything, all the tips and tricks, absolutely like total coverage of everything that you've learned. So here's a good example of someone who does a really good job at bite-sized tips. His name is Steve Shoger, and he's a designer from Canada. And he does a great job of kind of having these really like thorough graphics that teach you how to do something, especially if you're a developer who doesn't know much about design, which is a lot of his audience. It shows you kind of start to finish in a really valuable way some of his best design tips. And you can see here he's gotten 15,000 likes on this because this really struck a chord with people and solved a problem they had. But again, he didn't have to go write 10,000 words or do some intense thing for this. It was just a tweet. And so that's a great place to start because it's snackable. You can try a lot of different things and you didn't spend a lot of time on each one. And then maybe you can decide to kind of up your appetite and do something like a tasty side dish. So this could be something, maybe you want to spend an entire video. Like here's one from a creator that I love called Wes Boss, and he does a really good job of these kind of tasty side dishes. One was when React came out with their new context API, he recorded a quick video and blog post to show people in just about 5 minutes how to do it. It's not going to cover every situation. You'll have to go learn other things, but it's enough that you can understand that idea from start to finish. And there's no reason you can't do that for the new stuff that's coming out that you're working with or some project you're working on. Another thing he does is he has this podcast where he just covers kind of beginner development topics in a good level of detail. It's maybe like an hour long, and he'll talk about how to use APIs or how to set up your development environment or how to just different things like that. What should you use React or Vue or whatever else, and just kind of talk through things. It's not going to cover everything all the time, but it's enough to kind of whet your appetite and teach you something new. There's also another really valuable place if you have spent a lot of time in an area and all your friends are coming to you to learn more about this thing. You can really build a lot of goodwill by putting out a full course. So you can think, how do I teach someone this skill from scratch? The designer I showed you before, Steve Shoger, actually took all the tweets that he was putting together and created this guide called Refactoring UI. That's this whole ebook and course about how to become a better designer if you don't know anything about design and you are normally just working on the development side. And it did really, really well. And he knew it was going to do well because he'd already done all those quick little snackable design tips. Or you can see something like an online course creator. I pay for one called Laracast, and it just covers a lot of things in the PHP Laravel framework, and how to build it, how to resolve requests and different things like that, and how to work with that framework. And I trust it because he's put out a lot of things that are very thorough and in-depth, and he's an expert, and he gets to share that. But what about you? Maybe you say, hey, I really do want to do a podcast, or maybe I do want to put out an open source package, but I'm just not really sure what to focus on. I don't have any ideas right now, and that's okay. I've been there a lot too. And there's a few things that you can do to kind of jumpstart your ideation and come up with a few ideas if you don't have one. One is just to share your experience. You know, you don't have to come up with something new. You can just talk about what it's been like to share your journey so far, what it's been like to learn. This is something that I did last year, which is just after I got my software job, I just decided to share what I did, what was helpful in learning to code and learning that journey and doing the interview and all those things. I just shared it at a OKC free code camp meetup, just like this one. Nothing too fancy. I actually did it from my house. I didn't even come in. But the actual, like the big free code camp picked it up, and it's like people from like Iceland and like Sweden and like all these different continents, and like over 20,000 people have seen it now, just from like this short, like little 1 hour video I did, just sharing what was in my head and what had worked so far, just from my kitchen. And I didn't know it would blow up. It was pretty cool. But there's nothing crazy there. It's just sharing my actual experience. So you don't have to come up with something new. Just share what it's actually been like for you, because that's unique to you. Another one is to kind of like lower your pain tolerance. So if you've ever worked with like NPM and like getting all those packages, you can get a lot of extra space cluttered up, and it's pretty easy to delete. You just run a couple commands and you delete it. But someone made this neat little package that I found the other week called npkill that just like finds all the NPM modules and lets you hit a button and just delete them all really easily. And you might say, well, you know, Matt, that's really easy to do. I know how to delete things. I'm a pretty accomplished computer user. That's kind of silly. Isn't that not very useful? But if you lower your pain tolerance, like actually I find it kind of annoying to go through and search for that and delete all those things. So if you can kind of lower your pain tolerance and maybe things that you've grown comfortable with, but someone newer than you or less technical than you or hasn't been doing this as long, like how could you build a tool that makes it easier for those people? Rather than just saying, oh, well, you could figure that out if you waited through X, Y, or Z or spent a little bit of extra time. Think about what that would look like. Another one is to combine popular ideas and maybe new ideas. So here's an example of a product that I think is neat called Fathom Analytics. What it is it's like Google Analytics, but it's completely like privacy friendly. So it doesn't track your users or do other things like that. And so it's kind of taking this trend of privacy that's been championed by a lot of big companies lately, things like Firefox and Apple, and don't track your users, with this thing that is really popular and everyone uses, like website analytics. And what if you smush those two ideas together? What could you get on the other side? And maybe you're using Vue and like GraphQL is this new thing that you're learning. Maybe you can create the go-to blog post on Vue and GraphQL and just take that, and maybe that'll spark some ideas for your next package or podcast or project, whatever that is. So that's kind of like a quick overview of how to build your audience. Again, it's just give stuff away for free. Pay into it over time like a bank. And over time, you're going to earn the right to get noticed, to start that conversation that gets you a job, that launches your first side project, to make a little income on the side. So keep building software you already know. Give it away for free. Get in front of people. Share what you know. You don't have to come up with something crazy and new. Use the ideas you already have. Use the experiences you already have and put it out in public. And then over time, save it up and make an ask at the right time. And if you want to talk more about these ideas, I'm on Twitter. I'm here. Come chat. I'm sure we can figure something out or just brainstorm on some ideas. I also help co-lead another meetup called OKC Indie Hackers. We're going to start up a cohort in January. So if you have an idea but you're not sure how to get there, a group of us are going to start from the idea, validate it, build an MVP, get it in front of people, and use some of this stuff to kind of try growing your own side project, even if you've never done it before. So feel free to ask me about that too. If you're interested, it's totally open to anyone who wants to join in. But yeah, hopefully this is useful for you. And let me know if you have any questions. Yeah.